This Sesame Street is still with PBS. We're not HBO yet. My name is Bill Miller. I'm the station manager here. I want to start by asking how many of you are there? Anybody here who's a member of the station? Somebody who supports us? I want to say thank you very much for being here and for the financial support that you provide. It helps make this kind of special community event possible, and as you know, it helps keep us on the air. It helps keep the programming coming your way. So thank you so much for being here. I want to say how proud I am to be selected by Voices for Virginia's Children to be the location for tonight's very important forum. We're proud to do that. We're proud to help shine a light on the issues that are important to Virginia's children and that are important to voters in general. So thanks for helping make that possible. And lastly, I'm very honored to be able to host all four of the candidates for this important Senate seat in tonight's program. So if you miss anything that you hear tonight, it's going to be broadcast on Sunday at 6 p.m. on 88.9 WCVE. So tune that in. You can see what you look like on the radio and get a chance to refresh yourselves on some of the issues. Without further ado, we have a big agenda. We want to get started, so I'm going to turn the program over to Margaret.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much. Thanks so much to WCVE, for Bill and Craig Harper for working on this with Voices for Virginia's Children. My name is Margaret Nimmo Crow, and I am the Executive Director of Voices. And we are thrilled to be here tonight, and we're so grateful for all four candidates being here. I want to go ahead and introduce them very briefly, and of course we'll hear much more from them in just a moment. Immediately to my left is Marlene Durfee, who is an independent. To her left is Dan Gecker, a Democrat. To his left is Carl Lozer, a Libertarian. And finally, at the end, Glenn Sturdivant, a Republican. And we are so grateful that you all have taken the time out in this busy campaign season to be with us tonight and to share your views. I'd like to explain briefly why it is that Voices is sponsoring this event. Our mission is to improve the lives of Virginia's children by championing public policies. So unlike a direct service organization that works with kids and families one-on-one, which is incredibly important, we actually work at the state capitol and beyond to influence policymakers with the data and research about what is in the best interest of children. Our current priority areas are early childhood education, children's health and mental health, foster care and the child welfare system, and children's poverty. We are nonprofit and we are privately funded, which comes in very handy when we go up to the General Assembly building because we don't have a financial stake in any of the things that we're advocating for, and that puts us in a really important position. All of our advocacy and public education is based on data and research. We are home to the Annie E. Casey Kids Count Data Center for Virginia. That means if you go onto our website at vakids.org, you can have access to a huge database of more than 100 different indicators of child well-being for every locality in the state, and we track that over time, and that forms the basis of our advocacy efforts. As a 501c3 organization, Voices is strictly nonpartisan, as are our partners WCVE. We see voter and candidate education as an important strategy for elevating children's issues in the minds of the public and policymakers, so we're glad that you're interested as well. We have focused specifically on this race tonight because, as many of you are aware, the Senate is almost evenly split with 21 Republicans and 19 Democrats. And there are only a handful of contested races for either the House or the Senate this year in the elections, and this is one of the most competitive. So what happens in this race could determine political control of the Senate and have a huge impact on the outcome of public policy in Virginia moving forward. So our format tonight reflects our goals as an organization and also our nonprofit and nonpartisan status. So the forum, as you can see, is open to the public and the media, and it's been promoted broadly. As Bill told you, it will be aired Sunday night for the whole listening area. Each candidate tonight will have equal time to speak. They will have 1 minute opening statements. Each one will have 2 minutes to answer each question, and then they will have 1 minute for a closing statement. We will not have rebuttals. This is not a debate. And we have timers in the front row, you will see, with yellow and red cards to give you your instructions or your warnings when time is up. And I will say that we do have a bell in case we need it. And I apologize in advance. We are going to be very strict about our time because we have 4 candidates and we have a whole lot of issues that we'd like to cover. The first 4 questions that the candidates will be asked pertain to children's issues. And those will be asked by Stacey Hawkins Adams. And we're asking these questions because we know they pertain to issues that this coming General Assembly is going to face. And because we wanted to hear informed answers, we wanted to give each candidate a chance to do some research. So they were given these 4 questions a week ago. Then in the second part of the forum, Craig Carper, the news director for WCVE, will be asking the questions, and they're on a broader array of topics, and the candidates do not have those questions ahead of time. Finally, we will be live tweeting the event, and you can see the hashtags that we're using. So if you would like to do that and follow along, we would encourage you to do so. We will not ding the bell if you are looking at your cell phone. Without further ado, I would like to get us started with opening statements, and I would like to introduce our moderator for the first part of the forum, Stacey Hawkins Adams. As the Richmond Times-Dispatch parenting columnist, the communications director at Collegiate School, mother of 2, and Voices board member, we feel that she is eminently qualified to ask questions about children's issues. So Stacey, take it away.
Good evening. We're going to start, as Margaret said, by asking our candidates to start with 1-minute statements, and we will go in alphabetical order. So we will begin with you, Ms. Durfee.
Thank you very much, Stacy. Good evening, and thank you, Voices for Virginia's Children, and Margaret Nemo Crow, the Executive Director, for hosting this very first Candidates Forum for the 10th District. Community forums are very, very important to me, as it's been a part of my work in my community and in the past 30 years working on many issues. Issues such as driving under the influence, alcohol and drug prevention, cystic fibrosis, responsible government, and quality of life. Representing begins with listening and understanding your concerns. Today is extremely meaningful as we provide discussion with the issues facing Virginia's children. Nothing is more important to our future than securing a safe and bright future for our children. Your organization and many others like yours are the reasons why children have hope and better opportunities for progress. It is my pleasure to participate and to speak to you about how my campaign and my leadership will put people over politics and our children on a path to success. Thank you.
Mr. Gecker.
Thank you, Stacy. First, I want to thank Voices for Virginia's Children for bringing us together to talk tonight. I also want to thank all of you for taking the time to attend. I know these times are busy. End of the summer, it's hot outside, and it's nice to see people coming in to listen to policy issues. My name is Dan Gecker. My wife, Liz, there you go, who is here tonight, along with our 4 daughters, have proudly called Richmond home for over 30 years. Some of you may know me from business, revitalizing the city of Richmond. Some from my work here in Midlothian, where I've represented this district as an elected or appointed official for close to 20 years. Still others from the community activities that I've engaged in. This fall, I begin my 19th year coaching youth soccer. And for over 30 years, I've worked to build our community and improve the quality of life for everyone. Growing up, my sisters and I were raised by our single mother, who instilled in us the importance of hard work and education. With her guidance, I studied hard and followed the path to economic mobility that hard work and education provided. That was a quick minute.
Yeah.
Wow. But I'm excited to be here to talk about these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gecker. Mr. Lozer.
Thank you. My name is Carl Lozer. I'm the Libertarian candidate for this district. Tonight is obviously about the children, and there's definitely some important aspects that are essential to children's lives, and I think we really need to focus on those. One would include a strong family bond. 2 would be a comfortable, healthy environment. And 3 would be a stable financial upbringing. My 3 principles of creating economic opportunity, ending prohibition, and equal treatment under the law will provide these crucial aspects for children to thrive in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sturdivant.
Thank you, and I want to thank Voices for Virginia's Children and Dan, Marlene, Carl. It's great to be here with you all as well. Good evening, everybody. My name is Glenn Sturdivant. I'm running for state senate because I believe that we can do better in Virginia. When I told my kids tonight that I was coming to the PBS station and it was on Sesame Street, they almost didn't let me out of the house on time. I got involved in politics just a few years ago when I decided to run for school board in Richmond. Lori and I, we've got 3 children, and it was really focusing on their futures that got me motivated to get involved and to work to improve our schools for all of our students. We deserve a state government that spends our taxpayer dollars wisely, that invests in core functions of government like education, that helps the private sector create good-paying jobs, and then trusts Virginians to manage their own affairs free of government interference and red tape. That's why I'm running for state senate. That's why I'm running for this seat. Thank you for having me here this evening.
Thank you for those opening statements. We're going to launch right into our questions, as Margaret said, because time is of essence. And so I will read the question first, and then we're going to go in rotating order with the responses, and I will call on you to respond. The first question. Child poverty in the 10th district ranges from 38% in Richmond City to 11% in Chesterfield to 9% in Powhatan. But there are pockets of poverty in specific neighborhoods that are even higher. If elected, what policies would you support to impact childhood poverty? And we'll start with you, Mr. Gecker.
Thank you, Stacy. You cannot separate childhood poverty from family poverty. For over 50 years, we've been fighting the war on poverty. Much of that effort has gone to educating our children, but as we know, issues concerning poverty are more complex, and any solution requires a holistic approach. To allay the effects of childhood poverty, we must continue to educate, but we must find new ways to include the family. If elected, I would continue to support increasing access to high-quality education, including school readiness and literacy for our children. But I also believe we need to provide parity and equity in our schools, and we need to work hard toward improvements in our public school system. Educational opportunity must be independent of socioeconomics. For families, I support programs that strengthen economic security and increase opportunity. This means providing job training and paid internship opportunities and finding creative solutions to ensure that we are not just abandoning educational needs of our at-risk populations after 3rd grade. Finally, studies seem to suggest that growing up in areas that have concentrated poverty have a significant negative impact on upward mobility. We must invest and seek to rebuild these hard-hit communities. This includes investing in educational opportunities, jobs, and public safety. If you look at what we've done here in Chesterfield, we've started to do exactly that. We've had a series of schools on the east end of the county that have been left behind where the children don't have that same parity and equity. In 2012, we passed a new comprehensive plan that said in part, every citizen, no matter where they live in our community, is entitled to the same level of government service. We took that plan and we moved it to action. And the actions we've taken are $304 million bond referendum in 2013 to rebuild our eastern schools, and disproportionate funding of our eastern schools to build back that level of opportunity for those children who have been left behind. In addition, we have been very successful creating jobs in this community. We've seen over $2 billion worth of announced investment in the last 8 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Loser, your response?
Yes. No, thank you, Stacy, for the great question. We definitely need to look at the source of the problem. Currently, these children don't have a stable financial upbringing, and my plan to create economic opportunity will provide a stable financial upbringing. My plan will eliminate laws that hurt small businesses from growing. My plan will eliminate laws that deter the job market. My plan will eliminate double taxation. Here's an example of how my plan will increase the cash flow throughout the household. For instance, transportation is needed to get to work. To start out, when we buy a vehicle, we need to pay for your driver's license. You need to pay a recurring registration fee. You need to pay sales tax on your vehicle. You need to pay tax on every mile you drive to get to work. And lastly, you pay your personal property taxes. Isn't this burdening the families that need it? To me, it is. And that's why my plan to create economic opportunity by eliminating these taxes will provide families with a secure, healthy, and improved lifestyle. Thank you.
Mr. Sturdivant?
Thanks, Stacy. In my service on the school board in the city of Richmond, I've seen firsthand some of the deepest pockets of this concentrated poverty. Kids who come to school in the morning and haven't had enough to eat. They're coming to school hungry. Kids who leave on a Friday and don't know if they're going to have enough food to make it through to Monday again. Kids who come to school and their teachers have to work very hard to help those kids, even with things like personal hygiene. In my view, the biggest thing that we can do to impact poverty, it's about the economy at the end of the day. Virginia has seen less than 1% economic growth per year since 2011. Last year, we had 0% growth in GDP in Virginia, 0%. The only states that did better than us, or that did worse than us, were Alaska and Mississippi. We have got to make sure that we are putting the policies in place so that we can start growing this economy from the ground up again. And in my view, we need to have the competitive economic policies in place, like lower taxes, eliminating burdensome regulations, so that we can allow the private sector to grow, to create good paying jobs, and to help alleviate that poverty. Second piece of it is education. Education is really one of the silver bullets to eliminating poverty today. And we got to focus in large part on a lot of workforce training. Our community colleges are doing phenomenal work around the Commonwealth. We've got to support and promote the work that they are doing, so that when our kids graduate, they are either college-bound or career-ready. And that's the best thing that's going to allow them to have the skills to lift themselves out of challenging circumstances.
Thank you. Ms. Durfee.
Thank you, Stacy. We recognize that both education and jobs are the key factors in ensuring Virginia has a strong economy. The vision for Virginia, though, should work for all of us and not just a few. We will need to invest in our children, in our education, by expanding VPI to serve all 4-year-olds, so that we're making sure that our children enter school healthy and ready to learn. All localities should incorporate the neighborhood readiness, school readiness teams. Bring families, bring schools, bring the communities together so that we can help our children learn and be ready to succeed. Follow the model of Smart Beginnings. When I was on the Capital Region Collaborative in 2009, one of the initiatives was Smart Beginnings, and I'm so proud to say that I supported that effort along with many of our local and regional leaders in the Richmond region. It also has served over 90 localities in the state of Virginia, and we need to make sure that we expand Smart Beginnings programs. Programs like Fairfax Futures that also have truly impacted young lives and families. The concept of ready children, ready schools, ready communities, ready families should be implanted in all of our minds so that Virginia is really ready to make a difference. Our economy should work for all and those who work hard so that we can support the family and a bright future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your answers. We will now move on to the second question. Virginia has the lowest rate of youth in foster care in the nation, but the highest rate of youth who age out of foster care, meaning that they turn 18 and exit care before becoming connected to permanent families, either through reunification with parents, adoption, or having a relative take custody. National studies show that without additional supports, these youth face greater risk of homelessness, unemployment, school dropout, health problems, and criminal justice involvement. What would be your plan to, number one, ensure that fewer children age out of foster care, and number two, make sure that our youth who do age out of foster care have what they need to succeed? And we'll begin with you, Mr. Lozer.
Thank you. I'm glad you brought this to everyone's attention. Once again, I want to look at the source of the problem. Okay, we cannot force adoption, but we can prevent certain situations that force children into foster care. Children need a strong family bond and a comfortable family environment to live in. Currently, we are splitting up families and forcing children into foster care. You may be wondering, how are we responsible? Well, I'll tell you what, this bag of weed splits up more families than anybody in Richmond and Virginia. I spoke with a family in Richmond who had the problem resulting from a possession of marijuana charge. Once the father was arrested, the single mother had to support her 2 children. How can a mother work when she has no one to watch her children? Remember, childcare in Virginia is expensive. I mean, that's what it comes down to. When the father gets out of jail, how is he able to become productive again when we keep penalizing them? How does he get a job? How do they provide a good, strong financial upbringing for their child after this occurrence? This is a very common problem, which leads to child neglect or unintentional abuse of the child, which brings them into foster care in the first place. Prohibition of alcohol clearly didn't work in the past. Prohibition of marijuana or cannabis will not work now or in the future. Instead, we need to educate our children on making good decisions. My plan of ending prohibition of cannabis will help families and
Thank you, Mr. Loser.
children stay together. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sturdivant?
Thanks very much. As a father who has adopted 3 kids and has therefore been a foster father for a time, I've seen firsthand what good work so many in the Commonwealth do in fostering our kids. And one of the biggest challenges that those kids in foster care face is if they don't have a forever family, a permanent family by the time that they reach 18. And the way that the system is set up now, those children, 18-year-olds, are sent out into the world without any sort of support system in place. In my view, whether you grow up in Midlothian or you grow up in Mosby Court, when you turn 18, if you don't have that family unit and those supports in place, it's going to be real tough out there for you. And so I think it makes a lot of sense to reform the current system that we have now, to extend the age to 21 before our kids age out of the foster care system, to give those kids a little bit extra time to find those forever families. I think for the long term, as I mentioned earlier, the work that our community colleges are doing all across Virginia is phenomenal. And we have to continue to support workforce training in our community colleges so that all of our kids, and especially kids who are growing up in foster care, have the opportunity to develop the skills and the talents to be able to go out into the workforce.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Stacy. The issues of individuals who age out of foster care without adequate resources has gone unaddressed for too long. However, some advocate increasing foster care services to 21. This only delays not addressing the issue of care. Children of foster care, like traditional families, face similar issues in transitioning from the nest to adulthood, access to higher education, jobs, and housing. Too often, the foster care child has to navigate this transition alone. If elected, I will submit legislation to create a commission on transitional planning for foster care children. The transitional planning should commence at age 18 and should incorporate elements of the Foster Connections Act of 2008. Keep their medical benefits and give them the opportunity for independent living. We should also encourage businesses to create work-study programs, giving them a better support and opportunities before they age out at 18.
Thank you. Mr. Gecker?
Thank you, Stacy. It's obviously a difficult question, and you've heard basically a restatement of the problem. If this question were easy to answer, frankly, there would already be a fix. It is clear, and obviously uniformly agreed to here, that we need to do something about the issue of children aging out of the system before they are emotionally or developmentally ready to do so. Last year in Virginia, there was a bill proposed to extend the age to 21, and that failed. Extending to 21 for everybody actually may not be necessary. There are some studies out of the Midwest that indicate that Those aging out fall into 4 discrete subsets. Only one of those subsets of children, about 20% of the population, needed that additional support. We need to talk to the best minds in this area. We need to deal more closely with social services. We need to be sure the mental health resources are available to adequately screen and provide the individual resources needed for our children in foster care so that as they approach 18, we have some idea who needs that support to 21 or beyond. You know, the earlier part of the question, though, which hasn't been addressed, is how do you prevent children from going into the system at all? And, you know, I was happy to have the time to research these issues that Voices gave us, because it is clear that one of the policies that needs to be implemented is one that lowers the barriers to kinship care. To the extent we can locate children who otherwise would go into the foster system with family, we provide them with that long-term stability that they need to enter society appropriately.
Okay. Thank you all for your responses. We'll now move on to the third question. Within the 3 localities that make up the 10th district, more than 4,500 children live with serious mental illness. Despite recent efforts to reform Virginia's mental health system, many children go unserved because the system is fragmented, service availability and quality vary across the state, and there's a severe shortage of professionals trained to treat children and adolescents with disorders. The result is that many children with mental illness or mental health problems and their families are left largely to navigate the system on their own, unable to access services until problems become crises. How would you address these barriers to mental health treatment for young adults and youth?
Thanks, Stacy. First and foremost, we need to deal with the fragmentation. We need to get smart people of goodwill in a room and come up with a way to identify where those services are fragmented and figure out how to streamline that process. Second of all, I think it's easy, those of us who live here in Central Virginia, to forget that there are kids all around the Commonwealth who don't have access to those sort of mental health services that we might have relatively easy access to here. And with the constant improvements of technology, we have got to leverage those advancements in technology. And so things like telemedicine, telepsychiatry, telepsychology, these are opportunities for kids in underserved areas all around the state to have access to those mental health services that they need, but that they're having challenges getting now.
Thank you. Ms. Durfee.
Okay. Thank you, Stacy. First, we need to recognize that our children are unserved for the reasons stated in the question. In addition, there's no doubt that we spent the last 20 years focusing on incarceration rather than providing the necessary behavioral health services. We need to reform the criminal justice system and the mental health system and provide a community-based system of care that allows treatment and services for children no matter where they live. The General Assembly expanded crisis response services in all 5 regions in fiscal year 13 and fiscal year 14. Each region, led by Community Services Board, initiated or expanded services to improve access for community-based care. These pilots should be expanded for community-based care. They should also be monitored, and we should be ensuring that children receive the necessary care. In addition, parents should have an easy path for seeking assistance, so that I would strongly support parent referrals and the need for family assessment and planning teams. As for a shortage of mental health professionals, we need to provide incentives, at least to give them free tuition or housing for individuals who want to practice in greater areas where there are greater needs and where there's lack of resources to meet those needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gecker.
I think we can all agree that mental health resources or mental health services in Virginia don't have enough resources. In Chesterfield, we've seen the impact of a shortage of trained professionals in the area of child and adolescent disorders. Even if we wanted to hire, there are not people out there to hire. And so if we can't fill existing positions, we also cannot expand or increase service levels. No matter how the mental health system is organized, there are going to be difficulties navigating it if your first contact is when your child is in crisis. We need to do more to educate the community at large so that people know how to access help and navigate the system. I recently did a walk in their shoes. It's a homeless simulation put on by Homeward. One of the things that was most impressive about that day was the single point of entry that the homeless now have in Richmond, a place where they can go and gather all the information they need to know where to get services, whether you're a military veteran or just somebody out on the street. It was very impressive how that system was organized. Here, I don't get the sense that we have a full understanding of where the point of contact would be with the mental health system. Across the state, these barriers are real, and we can address them in several ways. First, we clearly need more trained professionals. We need to raise awareness of this issue and begin to work with educational institutions and medical schools to determine ways to attract individuals into the field. In addition, we need to find ways to assess at an early age. This may involve increasing training in mental health issues for pediatricians, use of screening tools by schools, or integration of different health professionals in medical offices. We need to ensure that this issue remains a priority in the legislature year in and year out.
Thank you. Mr. Loser?
Thank you. This question hits close to home as one of my cousins, he has a daily struggle of it. Currently, healthcare is being limited by Virginia government. And the Virginia Department of Health Certificate of Public Need Program limits healthcare providers, such as doctors' offices and hospitals, from obtaining the proper equipment and operating tables and new additions to their buildings and so forth. Why is the government discouraging businesses and healthcare providers from growing? Why does a hospital have to request the government to add more rooms to its building? Well, it exists. Why does the government limit healthcare from growing? There are a couple reasons. Virginia's Department of Health's board is appointed by the governor. Typically, the board are made up big donors to the governor's political party. Oh, who would have known? The certificate of public need decision is made with a subjective basis, typically decided by the amount of funds donated to the governor's campaign. Oh, look at that. Basically, it's a certificate of public need program that it creates cronyism, and that's at its finest. From an economic standpoint, less healthcare supply means higher costs and higher insurance premiums. The Certificate of Public Need program raises costs for healthcare. How does this make any sense? Currently, our tax dollars are funding this program to raise healthcare costs. My plan to create economic opportunity by eliminating the Certificate of Public Need program will open doors to new healthcare choices that are needed to help these children. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your responses. We'll move on to the next question. Within the 3 localities that make up the 10th district, there were more than 1,000 students this past year who arrived at kindergarten without the literacy skills they needed to be ready for school. What role, if any, do you think state government should take to prepare children for success in school? Ms. Durfee?
Thank you. Head Start and preschool initiatives have proven through their efforts that measures of helping children be healthy and ready to learn. Those in the BPI school initiative had tested better on literacy than those who have been served by pre-K experience. In addition, students who have had pre-K experience also score better on 3rd grade SOLs than students who have not had the pre-K experience. Government should have a role, and we should continue the great success of the local and regional coalitions like Smart Beginnings, who have already touched 90 localities. We need to expand these efforts and ensure that we're reaching all at-risk 4-year-olds and also filling the available slots and reaching all 4-year-olds statewide. We certainly should provide resources and partner with our private partners to continue to monitor and provide a statewide tracking system for our children.
Mr. Gecker?
Yeah, thank you. Pre-kindergarten and school readiness programs are critical to the success of our students. In at-risk communities, literacy and school readiness often predetermine whether the student will graduate, and even has implications to incarceration rates. The state plays 2 distinct roles in this picture. First, the state must set standards and coordinate resources to strengthen early childhood education and child care. This includes raising awareness of the importance of early preparation for success not only in school, but in life. We have to provide broad and stable funding for programs that provide high quality and affordable opportunities for decreasing the gaps in early care and education. In Chesterfield, in our fiscal year 16 budget, we added 144 seats to the pre-kindergarten program. It was the right thing to do for our community. While the state should play a role in shaping school readiness, the issues here, I think, speak to the larger issue of what do we do to improve our K-12 education system, not only for our region, but for the entire Commonwealth. I've led the effort in Chesterfield to provide parity and equity in our schools, to focus resources where needed to create a level playing field where all have the opportunity for success. We have prioritized our school funding to make sure every student has access to the quality education they deserve.
Mr. Loser?
Thank you. Government should not be responsible for the literacy of our child. My economic plan to create economic opportunity will make it easy and affordable for the parents to educate their children. When parents have more money kept in their pockets through fewer taxes, it will be easier for them to work less and educate their children on their own. My plan results of a strong family bond, a comfortable, healthy environment, and a stable financial upbringing. The children will be better prepared for school. With that being said, there are plenty of nonprofit organizations that can help this program, and it's not the government's job to educate. It's the government's job to allow for opportunity to get education, okay? And when it comes down to nonprofits, we need to get grant money out of nonprofits. We need to stop and let our taxes, let the people, you are the philanthropists. You decide where your taxes go. Well, excuse me, where your lack of taxes go. More money in your pocket means you can donate wherever you choose. And if you choose to be stingy, that's your choice. But you know what? It only comes back to you. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sturdivant.
Thanks, Stacy. My wife is a school teacher, and for part of her career is focused on working as a reading specialist. And so I know firsthand the challenges that kids face when they show up on day one in elementary school and don't have the background and the skills to be able to read. And when a child hits the age from learning how to read to learning to comprehend what they're reading, and if they're not where they should be, they only fall behind faster. And when those kids hit middle school, discipline issues start to come into play, and those kids fall behind even farther. And when they get to high school, we see so many of those kids drop out because if you're not literate, if you can't read, we see so many of those kids drop out, and that's a huge challenge we face. In my view, the VPI program started under Governor Allen and expanded under Governor Kane and the General Assembly a number of years ago, is a great program to get kids who are otherwise at risk the skills necessary to be able to read on day one. And that's a program that I support. It's a good program. It's something we need to have further support of in the General Assembly.
Thank you for your responses. The remaining questions will now be asked by WCBE News Director Craig Carper.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Stacy. And thank you to all our candidates again for participating. A reminder here, the rest of my questions have not been reviewed by the candidates, and I'm going to apologize at first because the first one's long. They're going to get shorter. So we're going to go a little bit into very current events here to start. The judicial appointment process is not an area that usually draws a lot of coverage or public interest, though Governor Terry McAuliffe recently used his constitutional power to fill a vacancy on the Supreme Court, appointing Fairfax Circuit Court Judge Jane Roush as an interim justice. Republicans then nominated their own candidate after Roush was seated. 24 former Virginia Bar Association presidents signed a letter saying the partisan gamesmanship over judicial appointments makes a mockery of the process. Just yesterday, Senator John Watkins broke with the Republican Party twice to vote with Democrats, opposing the GOP candidate, appeals court judge Rossi Alston Jr. for the bench, and then supported a maneuver to adjourn early, giving the governor the ability to reappoint Roush. This also allows the governor to hand over the redistricting process to the courts. My question for you is, do you agree with Watkins' actions? And this first goes to Mr. Gecker.
I can do this in about 2 seconds. Yes. You know, I'm proud to have Senator Watkins as my senator, and was even more proud yesterday, given the events that occurred. You know, what's unfortunate, and if you've been in and around government as long as I have, it's unfortunate that you get to a circumstance where phrases like partisan gamesmanship have to be used. But in fact, that's what this was. You know, I sought local office in order to get things done, and have worked hard with people of whatever party and whatever philosophy to move this community forward. And I think over the last 8 years and the last 16 years I've served this county, we've done a pretty good job moving things forward. If you look, we've reduced government, we've increased the number of teachers, we've increased the number of public safety personnel, all while leaving the tax burden on the average home in Chesterfield at the same level it was in 2007. To watch what happened in the General Assembly is sad for those of us who believe that government is here to do constructive things. You know, if elected, I would certainly hope that I would be able to participate in a government that set a clear agenda, that set priorities, and moved the people's business forward in a better way than was demonstrated by the Assembly yesterday and through the events that occurred just prior to yesterday.
Thank you, Mr. Gecker. Mr. Lozer.
Would you mind repeating the last part of the question, just the very last?
Do you agree with Watkins' actions yesterday?
I do think that parties need to start working together. That has been the problem with politics. And I think that when you see these two far out parties that are way out here, we haven't seen a change, and all we keep doing is voting and voting and voting for isolationists. Why are we not voting for parties that there is compromise for? There are other third-party people that we can actually start to, look into as candidates that are very well candidates that are there to be addressed. And the thing is, we don't see these candidates having the same opportunity. I'm very thankful for this opportunity tonight, but we don't see the same opportunity on the presidential scale because the Republicans and Democrats tend to put us out of the door, and that's really what it comes down to. So it's time let's all work together. There's nonprofits out there. Let's get the money out of politics. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get the money out of politics. These guys, they're just going to keep bringing money in. So have fun. If you want money, vote for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sturtevant.
Thanks, Craig. This is a great question. I got to tell you, I think anybody with any even a little bit of common sense realizes that we have got to get politics out of the selecting of judges, and we have got to get politics out of the redistricting process. I'm a practicing lawyer, and we have got to consider the state of our courts as sacrosanct. The consequences are too significant for politics to play in a role in the selection of our judges. In my view, we have got to have the very best, highest qualified jurists to come onto the bench, and that should be it. Politics should have no place whatsoever in the selecting of our judges. Second, on redistricting, politics has got to be taken out of this as well. I've traveled around this Senate district over the last 6 or 7 months, and I got to tell you, I will often pull out a map of this Senate district to show why it is the poster child of why we need to take politics out of redistricting. This is an extraordinarily gerrymandered Senate district, and it's wrong, and we got to fix that. And so in my view, we have got to have a independent, nonpartisan commission that is going to engage in the redistricting process, that's going to look at nonpartisan factors, that's going to keep communities contiguous, and get politics out of both of these issues.
Thank you, Mr. Sturtevant. Ms. Durfee.
Yes, thank you, Craig. Very easy answer, yes. And I'm very proud that Senator Watkins was my representative for nearly 30 years in the area that I've lived in. It's interesting, the conversation that we're having here about politics. That is the reason why I'm running as an independent. People over politics. Let's take Voices for Children, what you're all about. You're about using data and research in your decision-making process. I led the charge in Chesterfield County. I was the first person who stood up and said, I'm running as the independent because I saw firsthand the politics in Chesterfield County. I was responsible for the movement in Chesterfield County. The reason why there was a big turnover in the board is because of what my organization did in terms of bringing data and research into the issues that matter to the citizens in Chesterfield. It is about time we absolutely get politics out of the redistricting, but most importantly, we need to get politics out of our governing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Next session, when one of you is seated as a state senator, Governor Terry McAuliffe will introduce his 2-year budget. Then both houses will have the opportunity to propose changes to that budget. While it seems the economy continues to slowly rebound, massive defense cuts from sequestration loom and new spending will be limited. Which areas of the budget will you prioritize, and what areas could be cut to help pay for those priorities? And this question first goes to Mr. Lozer.
Thank you. I have a list of places I want to eliminate taxes. I can go down the list, I guess. I want to eliminate the certificate of public need. I've talked about that earlier. I want to eliminate the prohibition of cannabis, which will bring in taxes, as you know. I do want to abolish gaming and gambling laws. I think that why should the individual be able not to do what they choose as long as they're responsible? It's the person behind, just as it's the person behind the gun, it's the person behind the joint, it's the person behind the slot machine. They need to be held responsible for their actions. We cannot keep being responsible for irresponsibility. We cannot keep being responsible for irresponsibility. The taxpayers' money is currently funding all these horrible programs that exist through government. Well, let me tell you what, Obamacare was done by Democrats and Republicans. Is that news to you? Well, they both were in part of doing that. The Republicans, they added the fee to the bill that if you don't have insurance, you have to pay a fine. Well, look at that. That's Republicans. Obamacare, you got socialists on Obama's side. What is this doing to us? These programs suck, hands down. I mean, that's what it comes down to. These programs are horrible. Let's eliminate compulsory education laws. Let's end standards of learning tests in the education system. They don't work either. Let's end taxation on businesses, double taxation. It's got to end. Let's end the land use tax deferment program. Pretty sure some people know about that already. But anyways, that's it. We need to get rid of these taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Sturtevant.
Thanks. Thank you, Craig. The last 6 or 7 months that I've been traveling around the Senate district talking to thousands of voters, we are told that we are in economic recovery. I have just yet to run into anybody who feels like we are in any sort of real, robust economic recovery. Unemployment is 4-point-something%, but if you look at underemployment, the marginally attached, those who have lost full-time careers to part-time work, those who have given up looking for a job because they can't find one, those numbers are still way too high in Virginia, and those are numbers that affect every single one of us. We have got to get our economy back on track. We've got to get our economy growing again. And so I'm, in the General Assembly, in the State Senate, going to focus like a laser beam on getting our economy growing again.
Thank you. Ms. Durfee.
Thank you very much, Craig. This is a very interesting question. I've lived in this district for nearly 30 years, so I've been here when there have been several administrations. Depending on which governor has been in office, some governor will put his hand in the education bucket so that they can fund the transportation, and then the other governor who's interested in transportation will put his hand in the transportation bucket in order to sacrifice education. What we need to do is be realistic with the people in the Commonwealth. It should be the people who decide what are our priorities and not the politicians. Tax reform, this is something that I recommended years ago when I was on the VACO board. We need to look at Virginia. We have some archaic laws. Recently I was at an economic conference in Northern Virginia, and they too, you would think Northern Virginia being a robust economy, they too are wondering about their region and their economy, as well as we need to worry about our greater Richmond region as well. We need to look shortly. Jobs is going to bring, what kind of jobs we need to bring into the region. All sector jobs are going to make Virginia's economy thrive. But what's most important is that we be realistic about our priorities in the state of Virginia. What are the priorities? What kind of monies do we need to have? What kind of monies do we need to have to invest in our education and invest in economic development that's going to make sure that we are ready and that we can compete with other states in the country?
Thank you. Mr. Gecker.
Of course, Greg, it's difficult to cut a hypothetical budget as you suggest, but let's talk about approach, and let's talk about actually recent history. In 2008, the country and the localities here went through a significant recession. And in Chesterfield, we lost 15% of our real estate value, which, as most of you know, for a local government, real estate is the primary source of revenue. So losing that was significant. What we set about to do was to focus solely on the core missions of government. In Chesterfield, the decision was education and public safety. If you talk to any of our citizens, they can tell you, what are we focused on? It's education and public safety. The approach is the same at the state level. The decision needs to be, what items are we going to consider core? And we're going to have to prioritize out, that is, remove those things that are non-core. All of us understand the need to grow the economy. You know, the recession in local terms lasted exactly 5 years. That's when real estate values began to uptick again in this area. Now, I served as chairman of the Greater Richmond Partnership and have a fair understanding of how economic development occurs. You know, the role of government is to provide infrastructure and let the private sector do its work. Infrastructure in this case means not just the roads and the bridges that people think about, but also the education infrastructure so that we have a workforce that, to provide employers with people who are trained. We need the ability to match our skill sets with the employer's needs. When I was chair of Greater Richmond Partnership, we identified 7 industry clusters that were natural for this region based upon our location and educational climate. And I know my time is about to run, and I'm sorry about that. Let me just finish by saying...
Notice he's gone over every time. He's giving you the red card.
Yeah, I know. Don't take my time now, Marlene.
No, I'm not. I've stayed within my limit.
Okay, I want that 20 seconds added back. The point is, government does need to stay out of the way some of the private sector. We can do that. We know how to do it. In the last 8 years, we've had over $2 billion of announced investment in Chesterfield. Thank you for your accommodation of the time.
Thank you. An editorial appeared in the Richmond Times-Dispatch this morning by Kentucky Governor Steve Beshear, rebutting a previous opinion piece in the same paper on the issue of Medicaid expansion. The original RTD editorial said Virginia could have dodged a bullet by not expanding Medicaid, citing other states, including Kentucky, where enrollment was far greater than predicted. Beshear says that the piece essentially ignored the moral case for expanding access to health care. He adds that Kentucky's Medicaid expansion has been a huge success and is a net positive for the state's economy. My question is, should Virginia expand its Medicaid program to cover adults who currently make too much money to qualify for the state's existing Medicaid plan, but make too little to buy health insurance on the federal marketplace? And this question first goes to Mr. Sturdivant.
Thanks, Craig. It's a great question and very timely. You know, Medicaid is one of, if not the fastest growing pieces of our budget. I think it consumes about 21% now. And I think that the information that's come out is those states who have expanded, the costs have far exceeded the forecasts of what it was going to cost them. And at the end of the day, when we are still in a struggling economy, in my view, we should not be expanding government programs that are already crowding out other important pieces of the budget. There was an important study that came out of UVA a few months ago that showed that expanding Medicaid is going to take funding from higher education. And at the end of the day, when we have limited resources, we've got to be responsible with how we utilize them. State government has got to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars. And, quite frankly, it's hard for anybody to get up here, I think, and say that they support expanding Medicaid when JLARC is looking and studying this very issue right now. At the end of the day, we got to make sure that the current system we have in place is being run efficiently and effectively before we start talking about expanding it. That's the responsible thing to do.
Thank you. Ms. Durfee?
Yes, can you answer that question, or say it again? If it's not
Sure,
true?
I'll repeat the last
Okay.
portion. Should Virginia expand its Medicaid program to cover adults who currently make too much money to qualify for the state's existing Medicaid plan, but make too little to buy health insurance on the federal marketplace?
I find this an interesting question. About a few weeks ago, I attended a health event, and some of the individuals in the forum were pretty much saying that even if we expanded the coverage, that there would be individuals, the 400,000 individuals would not necessarily qualify to get those benefits. And so what I'd like to do is be able to work with both chambers down to General Assembly. I think we can provide a solution in Virginia, making sure that we have immediate access to health care and making sure that the children have those benefits. But what concerns me is that we open up a program that would possibly cost more. What we should be looking at efficiency of our healthcare system and the cost of our healthcare system. And I think Virginia has done it before when we've had many other programs that we've had to launch in Virginia, and I think that we can do it here in Virginia with the facilities that we have. There's a lot of clinics across the state of Virginia that we're closing. Maybe we should not be closing them. Maybe we should be making sure that we're providing that immediate access, healthcare access to people across the state of Virginia. There's other ways to make sure also that we give the health care to our citizens. Recently in Southwest Virginia, if anybody watched it on one of the TV shows, they actually had a bus, for lack of better words, but a big van of doctors and nurses who are out there in Southwest Virginia trying to make sure that we have insurance for our individuals. So I, right now, would like to say that I would go down to General Assembly and I would work with both chambers to find the best solution we can to make sure that we have immediate access care for our individuals.
Thank you, Mr. Durfee. Mr. Gecker?
Okay, thank you, Craig. I actually agree with the governor of Kentucky. This is in part a moral issue. Of the 25 wealthiest nations, we're the only one that doesn't provide basic health coverage. To expand Medicaid is, to me, not just the right thing to do, it's the economic thing to do. And you do have the 400,000 Virginians without insurance. You add 37,000 healthcare career jobs. We should be leading on this issue, not following on this issue. Whether it be done through the state-run exchange or a private exchange, that's something I think we can talk about meaningfully. But whether or not we ought to provide coverage for all Virginians, I think the answer to that is a clear yes. Health coverage, we all sat here not too long ago answering questions about poverty in children. Health coverage is a basic element of economic security. And for people to say that we should not cover, at the same time they're saying we need to provide economic security for our children and our families, to me is contradictory. Expansion of health care coverage is widely supported by businesses. We're actually fortunate in a sense to have dragged our feet because we have the ability to learn from other people's experiences with regard to forecasting and hitting budget targets. But as was mentioned before, one of the jobs of the state is to prioritize what's important. To me, health care, education, job creation are all important things that the state ought to be focused on.
Thank you. Mr. Lozer.
Thank you. When it comes to expanding healthcare, I completely disagree. I will not be expanding healthcare. I do believe in aid to the elderly, which is Medicaid. What I will do is, I'm a contractual being. I believe that these elderly people deserve what they were promised over these years. I will not be taking their health care away from them. What I will be doing is, for my generation and future generations, leading by example. We need to lead by example. By promoting these for our generation, we're screwing it over. We know that DMV sucks. I'm just going to keep using that word. You wait in line forever. You wait in line forever. Well, government programs are not efficient. My program, by privatizing healthcare, will make it a lot more efficient, and that's what my plan to create economic opportunity will do. When you keep adding to the dragon, it only gets bigger. It's just gonna take over. So the problem is, we need to focus on privatization of healthcare. That's hands down what it is. So elderly definitely deserve healthcare. My generation, we do not. We need to start coming up with plans for ourselves to be responsible. I believe in responsibility of the individual. Because other generations were not responsible, I don't think that we should be placed the burden on. But we're gonna be taking advantage of the burden that we were given, and we're gonna pay for the elderly. But once that's done, it's over. No more expansion, no more healthcare. Get healthcare out of government, get healthcare out of business. Let you, as the individual, decide what's best for yourself. When you have government health care, you have bills that decide, oh, well, ladies' health, I have to get a certain procedure because the government's involved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Several recent studies, including a 2014 report from the State Board of Education, say state spending on K through 12 public education is essentially flat compared to the start of the recession. The funding formula to provide localities with state funding for education is known as the Standards of Quality, or SOQ. It takes into account classroom size, school facility needs, and other factors. Some say this underestimates the true cost of funding schools. How would you make sure that students and teachers are receiving adequate resources? And this question first goes to Ms. Durfee.
Well, I think it's very important that we understand if we truly are underfunding or overfunding. I don't think we're overfunding. Obviously, we've seen a decline in the amount of revenues that we've been able to provide for education. But we do need to understand how we're spending the money. In Chesterfield, it was very important that we looked at our budget and made sure that we were going to be sure that spending the money in the right direction. Localities, school boards have the authority to use the monies as they please, but not necessarily do they pay attention to how those monies should be spent. When I was a supervisor, I made sure that the monies were going to be spent in the classroom and the teachers, and not necessarily towards infrastructure that wasn't really going to serve the population that it needed to be served. In the state of Virginia, I mentioned earlier about depending on what governor you have, we're taking the hand and putting it in the transportation bucket and taking away from the education funds. And if you have a governor who's all for education, then we're taking away from the transportation bucket. Again, we need to be realistic with our budget in Virginia, letting the people know, first of all, letting the people tell us what are their priorities, but certainly educating the public on what available funds there are in the state of Virginia and what future funds we will be able to have. We are going to have a biennial shortfall of funds, and I think we need to let the public know where those shortfalls are going to be, and maybe where we're spending money where we shouldn't. Maybe somehow we can do a better job with Virginia in terms of our budget.
Thank you, Ms.
But
Durfee.
I do want to say that it's very important that we invest in the pre-K. You're asking about the pre-K, and I wanted to make sure that we absolutely invest in pre-K, because I look at this issue as an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so the things we do today for pre-K will absolutely make sure that we don't pay on the back end when our children are probably in other areas of the criminal justice system, and so we need to make sure we invest.
Thank you, Ms. Durfee. Mr. Gecker.
Thank you, Craig. Yeah, certainly, I believe in accountability. Every system of government ought to be accountable and ought to be run in the most efficient way possible. That includes the education system. They don't get a pass because they teach our kids. What happens is they need to be held accountable for how the money is spent. And we can debate, really for much longer than we have here tonight, how that what form that accountability should take. But just take that as a premise. We need to, at the state level, ensure stability in school funding. We need to be able to have our school districts be able to plan. We've seen just last year in the assembly, they had a few dollars left over and they said, we're going to give you localities a gift. We're going to say, if you take this money, you can raise your teacher pay, but as long as you match it, and oh, by the way, there's no guarantee next year you'll have that funding stream. That makes it very difficult for schools, local schools, to plan on funding sources. It makes it difficult to implement programs. One of the best things I think we did in Chesterfield was implemented 2 years ago a 5-year plan with our school division, which set out how the money was going to be spent. Each year we knew how many more teachers were going to be added to the classrooms. Each year we knew what teacher pay raises there were going to be. And that has allowed us to move forward in concert, in lockstep with the school division, to try to provide the best education possible for our children. They can plan around our funding source. We also need to focus on the teachers. Teachers need to be able to do what they're supposed to do, teach, not teach to the test. You know, somebody once said that the purpose of education is to light the fire, not to fill the bucket. It's time we allowed our teachers to light that fire again. And I would work toward not only the funding issue, but also the policy issues that hamstring our teachers from being able to do what it is they want to do, which is to teach our kids that curiosity that will make them better adults.
Thank you, Mr. Gecker. Mr. Lozer.
Thank you. Well, when it comes to the pre-K program, I will not be funding that. It's pretty clear. I hope you can realize that, because I do think there's other solutions. Pre-K is very important. Education is important. If teachers want to be paid more, they need to go outside of public schools. Clearly, private schools pay more money. Well, you can debate on that, but the problem is, and actually, excuse me, I was wrong. It's artificially high that teachers get paid when it comes to a market that the governments run. They have so much benefits, and all these benefits that are given to markets. All these benefits are given to these teachers that we can't even afford right now, because we're paying so much money into education. That is our top paycheck we pay in Virginia, and we haven't seen a good outcome from that. I mean, Richmond schools, we just closed 2 schools. I mean, we clearly are not. We're clearly failing. I mean, I think that's probably an issue. But and then in Chesterfield, we've seen raises in tax. Oh, excuse me. You didn't raise it this year. You almost continued it from last year. Anyways, so the whole point is we need to focus on education outside of the schools. Right now, I'm part of an organization called Concerned Black Men. What I plan on doing is mentoring individuals and helping them succeed in life. Okay? This is the type of programs we need. You can't exist without programs that are not. These programs don't need to be funded by the government. What they need is people like you to donate to them. And there are plenty of people that can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sturdivant.
Thank you, Craig. Making sure that every single child in Virginia has access to a quality education is going to be a top priority for me in the state Senate. Being married to a teacher, I think most, if not all of us, agree that we need to be paying our teachers better, to reward them, to compensate them for the work that they do for our kids. It is vitally important that our funding be making it into the classrooms rather than being spent on an ever-increasing bureaucracy at central office and in administration. On the school board in the city of Richmond, we have audited the entire school system from top to bottom, now have these ongoing audits. I led the effort to put our check register online. We're now one of the only school systems in the state where you can go to our website and you can see where every dollar is spent, where every check is written. That's a great thing for transparency. It's a great thing for accountability. It's a good thing so that we can see exactly how our taxpayer dollars are being spent. We've got to do the same thing at the state level to make sure that our funding is making it into the classrooms where kids learn and not being spent on bureaucracy, so that every single child in Virginia does have access to a quality education.
Thank you. And this is my final question. Many Richmonders have long complained that the local composite index, the state's formula for distributing school funds, shortchanges our kids here locally. It's based on property values, adjustable gross income, and retail sales. Is it time for that formula to be adjusted, and what would be a preferable system? And this first goes, to Mr. Geckert.
Thank you, Craig. You know, we can certainly look at the local composite index, but, you know, for those of us older than 4 in the room, I take that back. For all of us, those of us who are alive in 2008, at the time of the recession, we remember when Northern Virginia's property values declined in the 30% range, and all of a sudden, people said, we need to change the formula. We need to change the formula because they looked relatively poor compared to the rest of us. The issue is not in the formula. The issue is in the commitment of the legislature to provide a stable and appropriate stream of funds toward our schools. That includes recognizing that the standards of quality, which have been lowered over some years, need to be raised to accurately reflect the priorities of our citizens and the type of education we want to give our children. Raising the standards of quality would improve the funding stream for the localities. If we, no matter what formula you put in place, somebody is going to say, I'm being shortchanged here or there. The question is the current formula equitable, and is it sufficient, which is the primary question, is it sufficient to fund those things we want to do? As most of us, 3 of us have said, the education funding stream is probably not sufficient to do all that we want to do. We want to provide for teacher pay increases. We want to provide for smaller class sizes. And so I would again look to the state budget process to continue and further the priority of education as we move forward.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Lozer.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Is it time for the local composite index? And I'll refresh that. It's based on property values, adjustable gross income, and retail sales. This is the school funding formula for the state. Is it time for that formula to be adjusted, and what would be a preferable system?
Well, let's put it this way. It hasn't been working the way it's been. So we have to look into figuring out what particular ways, and we have to look at the statistics on it, and we have to figure out ways that we can permit a better structure. I mean, that's what it comes down to. This previous structure is not working. I don't see government as efficient at all. I really don't. I think that government's completely inefficient. Every place, if I have to call Richmond County public utilities, I wait on the phone for an hour. I can call other utilities like Dominion and be on the phone probably for 25, 30 minutes, which is a huge difference. I have time today. Time is money, let's put it that way. And we need to make our government less efficient because we need to make it more efficient for people and the individual to prosper. People need to prosper. The individual needs to prosper. Government's inefficient. Let's just put it that way. And I think that when you have your own money, it's a lot easier to spend in the places you can see fit. Well, when government has your money, they clearly don't see that, do they? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sturdivant.
Thank you, Craig. You know, whether it is the way in which the state funds education, or whether it's the way in which the state funds transportation or anything else, as the state senator for the 10th district, I am going to fight to make sure that Chesterfield, Richmond, and Powhatan have what they need to get the job done. At the end of the day, what matters is how those funds are spent. Are we doing it in a fiscally responsible manner? Are we being good stewards of limited taxpayer dollars? And you know, at the end of the day, we've got to make sure that our localities are being good stewards, that our school systems are being good stewards. But my focus as the state senator for this area is going to be make sure that the localities in the 10th district have what they need to be able to get the job done.
Thank you. And Ms. Durfee?
Yes, Craig, I think your question was about the local composite index. It was, okay. I just want to make sure, because I hear people talking about whether we need additional funds. I think we talked about that in a few earlier questions. I served on the VACO board, and some of the members on that VACO board did raise questions about the local composite index. There is kind of like an equity and efficiency issue with the local composite index. Some people say, well, Northern Virginia benefits and the Central Richmond region doesn't benefit, or if the Central Richmond doesn't, then Northern Virginia doesn't. I think it's time. It has worked for us for a very, very long time, but I think more and more folks are, if you have had the opportunity to have discussions with local governments, they will absolutely tell you it's time for us to maybe reform our local composite index and find a better way so that we're making sure that we're having equitable funds across the state of Virginia, and that no other region's necessarily advantaged over another region.
Thank you. And we've now come to the time for our closing statements, and that will first go to Mr. Sturdivant.
All right, well, thank you, Craig and Stacy. I want to thank Voices for Virginia's Children for having us here tonight. And Marlene, Dan, Carl, it's been a great conversation. Good being here with you as well. And thank you all for taking the time out of your evening to be here with us. You know, Virginia just fell out of the top 10 places to do business for the first time ever. And one of the things that they looked at was our cost of doing business, our tax, and our regulatory structure. Virginia was ranked 37th worst in the country. We all think of Virginia as being a low-tax, reasonable regulation state. We're not there right now. Last year, we saw 0% GDP growth in Virginia. That means that with Alaska and Mississippi being the only states to do worse than us, that means that DC and Maryland did better than Virginia. We can't continue to move forward like that. With less than 1% economic growth per year since 2011, we are not seeing a real and robust economic recovery. As state senator, I'm going to focus like a laser beam on getting the economy back on track, and I hope to earn your vote. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Lozer.
Well, I just want to thank Voices of Virginia's Children and NPR and WCVE for having us. Want to thank everybody here. Thank you to my supporters. Thank you to my friends and family. Especially thank you to the Libertarian Party of Virginia. They've been there all throughout my campaign to support me. I also want to thank my campaign manager, Corey Falconier. He's been there all this time, working for free, volunteering, because this is what he believes in. And we need to keep fighting for liberty in Virginia. My plan is to create economic opportunity and prohibition and enforce equal treatment under the law. Will provide a strong family bond, a comfortable, healthy environment, and a more stable financial upbringing for the children in Virginia. Anyways, I would like to say, lastly, if you look at government, it's completely inefficient. So, November 3rd, vote loser, win liberty. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Gecker.
I certainly wish I had a catchy, phrase like that one. Thank you to everybody for being here. Thank you all for hosting it. Thank the audience. I'll thank my wife, since Carl thanked everybody he knew here. We've got many critical issues facing our community. And I think what we want to do is find people who are in a position to address those critical issues in a way that's been demonstrated to be successful. I've been in public service now for close to 20 years. 8 on the Planning Commission in this county, 8 on the Board of Supervisors. I've seen the county go through difficult times. I've seen us actually go through very good times, the pre-08 era. And, one thing is constant. Government needs to focus on priorities. I have a demonstrated record of focusing on education, focusing on public safety, focusing on job creation, focusing on economic development. The county, thank you. If I were the Libertarian candidate, I would have taken that extra 20 seconds, but I'm going to follow this rule.
Thank you. And Ms. Durfee.
I guess I better talk fast since we only have a minute, right? Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for being here this evening, and I want to thank again Mrs. Crow and the hardworking staff of Voices for Children for your commitment to put children first and hosting all of us in this forum, where we certainly have learned a great deal about public policy and how we can impact the lives of our children and families. Virginians in the 10th District care enormously about health and the well-being of their children, and they will rise to meet the challenges. But it begins also by electing a representative that will put the people first, people over politics, individuals over special interests, and lies before political contributions. I am more than a candidate asking for your support. I'm a mother and I'm a parent who wanted better opportunities for my children, but I firmly believe that all children deserve the best possible shot at success. Because I've been a part of many causes in my life encouraging voices, I will ensure that the voices for your children will be louder than the political parties, the political party rhetoric, and the sounds of those voices are solutions, not politics as usual. Our children deserve nothing less, and I humbly ask for your support and God's blessings as we all engage. Thank you.
And I want to take this opportunity. Margaret's going to wrap things up, but I'd like to thank all of you for coming out. I'd like to thank all of our candidates again one more time.
Thank you all very much. We may have had several firsts tonight, but I know one of them is that we actually finished a few minutes early. I don't think that's ever happened. So thank you all.
I thought the first was going to be marijuana on the table.
I was going to let someone else in. We are very grateful to be the first opportunity for all the candidates to be together in the Senate District. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is absolutely a critical race for the future of Virginia, and we are so grateful that you all were here. Thanks very much to Craig and Bill and WCBE for hosting us, and we wish you all a great weekend.
It's grass, promise.
Thank you.